Welcome to CXC Biology TCP. I am Mr. Wilson, and today we're going to be doing an overview of a January 2019 Human and Social Biology Paper 2. You want to grab your pen and papers, your textbook, and of course other resources to ensure that you follow as we go through these questions. So for those persons who are seeing a paper for the first time, usually it looks something like this with the instructions there, and you have to follow and of course get ready for the exam. Section A. Answer all questions in this section. Figure 1 shows the image of an upper limb. The image shows a skeletal muscle labeled A, which forms one part of course, the antagonistic muscle. Now, antagonistic muscle, they are usually opposing each other. So let us look at what the question is asking for here. So we're looking at the upper limb, that's of course on the arm. So identify the muscle labeled A. That muscle on the front of the arm there, the upper arm, is going to be the bicep. I do hope that you would have gotten that, as our students would have asked us to, of course, cover the answer so they get a fair chance to attempt the question. The other question requires us to name the muscle that is antagonistic to the muscle named above. So that's going to be the one at the back. So that muscle there is of course going to be our tricep. Now please be reminded that at any time you can pause the video to answer your question. You really don't have to go at the speed that we are going at. Nothing is missing there. So let's look at this question. Contraction and relaxation of the skeletal muscle in figure 1 are necessary for locomotion. Explain how these muscles work together to cause movement of the forearm. That's the upper arm, not the iron. The forearm is of course looking at the hand. So here I'm going to be unveiling the answer. You can pause to answer. So this is our answer. The muscles are connected to bones in the upper and lower arm. The bicep, with support from the bone, will contract. Should be having an R there. Will contract, shorten, and becomes fat to flex the arm. While the arm is flexed, and we refer to flex mean the arm being bent where the fist is going to be closer to the shoulder, the tricep relaxes and becomes long and slender. When the arm is extended, that is when the muscle is when the fist is now closer to the knee. When the arm is extended, the muscle takes on the opposite action. Bicep relax, tricep contract, and the arm is lowered. Now the diagram that we have there above, it shows a flexed arm. So I am sure that you would have an answer similar to this. Let's look at the other. State 2 reasons why locomotion is important to human. So 2 reasons. There are many reasons, and we're just asking for 2. So the 2 reasons here is that locomotion is important as it helps human to move away from danger. It helps human to find food, to find mate, to find shelter, to find water, to escape predator, and the list might go on and on for some persons. So I do hope that you have something at least similar to that. I will move right along. Now this question looks at a graph, and we're looking at malaria and dengue. I did do a video on dengue and malaria and of course the mosquitoes on my live. You can go to the channel and check it out. For those persons who are joining me for the first time, if you've not subscribed, please be reminded to subscribe. Look to the bottom right of this video. You'll see a yellow icon that says CXC Biology TCP. You can click and subscribe. I think you need to have a YouTube account in order to subscribe. And you could also look below the video. There's a red icon that says subscribe. You can subscribe there. You can also click the notification bell so that you'll be informed as soon as there is a new video. However, you don't need to subscribe to do this. If you want to find our many other videos, you need to look below this video. To the left of the screen, you'll see a blue icon that says CSEC Biology TCP. Just click on that icon and it will take you to the hundreds of videos that we have to help you prepare for your exam. Let's get back to the lesson. Now, Table 1 and Table 2 show the incidence of the disease in 2 Caribbean islands, and the Caribbean islands are X and Y during the period 1990 to 1994. Please take note of the title here for the table. This title could be used as a title for your graph. So we have Table 1 and Table 2, and of course important to note that the figures in the first column that says here usually is the independent variable, and those are placed on your x-axis of the graph. Now, what is required of us? On the grid provided on graph 7 or on page 7, plot a bar graph to show the number of dengue cases and malaria cases in each year shown in the table, are shown in Table 1 and Table 2. Now, it's important to note here that it is a bar graph, which means that the bars are not necessarily touching as they would in a histogram. But we're using 2 different variables here, so the bar might touch, but they really bear no relation. All right, so we move right along. Let's look at the graph. So there, your graph should have a title. Graph showing incidence of dengue and malaria in 2 Caribbean islands, X and Y between that. And you would have observed I would have taken this title from the table and just modified to say graph. Now here I have a scale X where it's saying 1 centimeter represents a year, and on the y-axis 1 centimeter represents 10 individual. Now remember that the y-axis is here, and you need to find a suitable scale that both variables will fit on. Now this here is pretty much the name or description of this axis, which is of course the y-axis. Number of malaria and dengue cases in island X and Y, and it is represented in individuals. That's the unit we're using there. And to the bottom here we have year or time for the x-axis, and here we have it 1991 up to 94. Now you're observing here we're having both information being plotted, but over here you're seeing nothing green because no data. It was pretty much 0 here, so nothing was captured. And here it's the same. So we are using the green, we are using the blue to represent country X, and we're using the green to represent country Y. So you would have seen that is what it looks like. The bars are not really touching. These variables are different. So you observe these 2 here, the space between, that type of a thing. It is not an histogram, it's a bar chart. Alright? So the variables there are independent. There is no continuity. Alright, so we move on to this. I do hope that you understood the graph. Just let me just show you again. Just move a little slower. Alright, that is what it is. Alright, great. So we move on to the other question. Which island had the greatest number of cases of dengue during the period 1990 to 1994? So you could go to the graph and get the greatest case of dengue. So we're looking at dengue here, dengue fever during 1990, and this is country X. So we want to know the greatest number. So to find the greatest number between 90 and 94, we will need to add all this up. Alright, and that's for dengue. And of course this is malaria, and it is showing dengue versus malaria, as we said earlier. So let me see what the question says here. Which island? So let us look at that. Of course, our answer is going to be island X, as of course it said here. Let's get back to it. Table number of cases of dengue fever in Caribbean island X. So Caribbean island X here had dengue fever. So if you add that up, of course you realize that island X had a greater number of dengue. Now let us look at the other. Suggest 3 reasons that could account for the pattern shown in the number of dengue cases in the Caribbean. Now, what would have caused dengue to rise in the Caribbean? What would be that vector responsible for dengue? What would have been the condition necessary for breathing? How is the vector control? These are things that we have to take in consideration when we are going to answer this question. So I haven't taken those in consideration, then we could look at our answer. All right, with the high case of dengue, mosquito breeding sites were destroyed. Oh, so just 3 reasons that could account for the pattern shown in the number of dengue cases. That so we're saying with the high case of dengue, mosquito breeding sites were destroyed, hence reducing population. So as we go across with dengue, let us look at it. As we go across with dengue, and remember that with dengue, what we found happening here is that the number kept reducing as we move from 90 to 94. So we could safely say, for the explanation here, that the mosquito breeding sites were destroyed, hence reducing the population. They also employed fogging, where fogging of the air with insecticide to kill mosquitoes, and that also reduced the population. Also, the introduction of biological control like the dragonfly and Bacillus thuringiensis BT to control the growth of the mosquito population. So any one of those 3, if you were supposed to control the population of the vector, which is of course the, as it were for dengue, the Aedes aegypti, then of course you would have controlled or reduced the spread of dengue. So I honestly think that these could have been plausible reasons for the reduction or the pattern that we would have seen. Let's look at the other question. Say 2 similarities between dengue and malaria. What makes them similar? All right, they are both, of course, spread by a mosquito. That's the first thing that should pop out. They are both transmitted by the vector mosquito. Both are disease that can lead to death of individual. That is something similar about both dengue and malaria. They are both pathogenic disease. All right, that's something similar again, and of course they both cause a fever. I gave the blue there as extra for those persons who wanted a little extra, and you might have something extra when you study. It's not to say that these are the only thing, but these are things that you could have used. All right, so we move on down. Do hope that you are following with your textbook. All right, so define the term excretion. We are at question number 2. Excretion, a very key word is needed here, so you need to go to the topic excretion in your textbook if you're going to be following with this question. Before you needed to look at the skeletal system, then you needed to look at vector disease transmitted by vector to find out about the mosquito. So we're going to be looking at excretion now, so you need to move on to excretion in your text. So here we go. Excretion is a removal of metabolic waste from the body. It's very important to note here that you cannot talk about excretion without using the word metabolic waste. Now remember, feces is not a excretory product because it has not gone through metabolism. You know, metabolism has to do with the catabolism and anabolism process or anabolic process. So you really don't want to try or even attempt to talk about excretion and not involving metabolic waste. It must be a part of your definition when you are talking about excretion. Let's move on to the figure 2 shows a diagram of structure of the excretory system. We are looking at the kidney there, urinary system. You will of course know that this is one of the diagram that you need to know for the exam. Now we're required to match each function below with the appropriate structure by writing the letter A, B, C, or D in the space provided. Please note that there are more structure given than there are function. So let us get into this. So A, the structure that carries blood away from the kidney. Blood away from the kidney. That is going to be our renal vein. It's away. Now the structure that houses the Bowman, that houses the Bowman capsule, the Bowman structure that houses the Bowman capsule. So that is asking you what part of the kidney. Is it the medulla or is it the cortex? It's going to be the cortex here, so it's going to be C. It's Bowman capsule, so it is going to be in the cortex. The structure through which urine leaves the body, that's going to be E. Is going to be through the urethra, and the structure that stores urine, that's going to be D there. It's going to be the bladder any day of a week. And we move on down. Reba is 50 pounds overweight. Her doctor tells her that she has developed diabetes mellitus. Predict 3 effects Reba may experience if she leaves her diabetes unmanaged. So if she fails to manage that diabetes, what is likely to happen? That is what the question is asking. You can pause and answer. All right, there we go. So she's going to experience tiredness. She's going to feel a whole lot of tired. She's going to feel she might end up with what we refer to as renal failure. The kidney is not working. She might end up with eye defects. She might find herself urinating more, that type of thing. She might find herself being thirsty more, that type of a thing. So these are 3 that you could look at. These are not the only 3. So feel free to, of course, add others, as it were, for your textbook. And of course, you could find diabetes. I think it's found about 2 places in your text. So you want to check the index to ensure that you look on diabetes, and you need to know diabetes for the exam. It is always on an exam, so ensure that you cover that. State 3 recommendations which Reba's doctor may suggest to help her manage her diabetes. Alright, so you can pause, you can check your textbook, or you can just write them down. Here I reveal. The doctor would definitely tell you to eat less carbohydrate. That sugar thing and diabetes, the islet of Langerhans or the islet of Langerhans, they are not working as they should. So as to convert that excess sugar, that wouldn't be possible. So eat less carbohydrate, eat less fatty food, of course. And of course, you need to exercise more so that you can, of course, burn some of that starch, that excess energy that you have in there. Alright, so I think your doctor would be saying that to you. Not managing the system good today, not too sure what's happening. Now, Reba's husband, Mike, is a high-powered lawyer who is also overweight and smokes for relaxation. Suggests one disease that Mike could be at risk for developing, and give 2 symptoms of the disease. Now remember here that symptoms refer to those that the patient will feel. So the patient will definitely have to tell you about the symptoms. However, the signs are those that you can see or, of course, detect. So let us look at what are those based on what we have here. Emphysema, that is one possibility that the lawyer could end up with. The lawyer bronchioles could collapse during exhalation, so there is obstruction of the airway. Of course, there could be difficulty breathing. The walls of the alveoli become less elastic, and that is the reason for that. Walls, so the red here is the answer, and of course I provided some explanation through the blue writing. So our answer here, it says suggests one disease, right, that Mike could be at risk for developing. And you are going to give two symptoms. All right, so the disease there is emphysema, and the symptoms there, obstruction of the airway, and of course difficulty breathing. Here we go again. We're at question number 3. So we are midway the paper. The nervous system, together with the endocrine system, regulates all the activities of the human body. It consists of two major divisions: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Most persons would be familiar with this, so you need to go to the nervous system if you are going to answer this question. Name the two main components of the central nervous system. Now, of course, it's the CNS that we refer to as the central nervous system, and that would take in the brain and, of course, the spinal cord. Now, name the main components of a peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system refers to the nervous system that radiates from the central nervous system, which of course is going to be the nerves. We refer to them as a nerve. So we spoke about brain and spinal cord. Now it is saying name the main component. So the main component here is going to be the nerve. And the nerve here that we're talking about in bracket would have been the cranial nerve and the spinal nerve. So if you have ever seen this, if we're talking about the peripheral nervous system, we're talking about nerves. If we're talking about the central nervous system, we're talking about the brain and the spinal cord. It is as easy as that. I know a lot of teachers would have taught you about cranial and spinal nerve, but the bottom line here, it is nerves. So get used to that fact, all right? Then we move right along. Just ignore me going up and down, having problem managing this thing. The table below shows 4 functions of different parts of the brain. All right, sometimes we're seeing some diagram of the brain, and sometimes we struggle to interpret what is being asked, what is it that we are expected to answer. So here the function of a brain controls heart rate and blood pressure. So this is an autonomic action. All right, so that is going to be, I think, the medulla oblongata. Secretes hormone that controls the growth of metabolism. I think that's a pituitary gland. Control conscious thought, that's the cerebrum, and coordinate balance, posture, and movement. That is going to be the cerebellum. I like to talk about the cerebellum as balancing because the 2L there remind me at all time about a walking stick. So the walking stick would assist you with the balance. So it is saying here that we should match each part of the brain below with its appropriate function by writing the letters A, B, C, D. Now pay attention, it asks you to write the letters, so please follow instruction in the space provided. Please note that there are more functions listed than there are parts of the brain. So we have the cerebrum, we have the cerebellum. So let us look at what is our answers here. Now C is going to be control, conscious thought, and memory, learning, that type of thing, it's of course going to be the cerebellum. D, that is of course going to coordinate balance, and B is of course going to be our pituitary gland. It's going to be our pituitary gland, and we have nothing there for A, but A would have been the medulla oblongata, as it is pretty much responsible for the involuntary actions named. During a human and social biology class, a teacher explained the difference between voluntary and involuntary action. So we are back at the skeletal system. Name one voluntary action and explain how the action occurs. Now, voluntary action is under conscious thought, right? So you decide. I made the decision to answer this question to assist some students. So that is pretty much something I volunteered. The first thing we need to know is that, as I said before, if it is voluntary action, it's under conscious thought. So here I gave you an example, pulling something from the top of the paper, just showing you that sometimes the answer can be found on the paper. Now the movement of the arm, if you're moving your arm, or it's as it said before, your forelimb, the individual will decide to move the arm. So impulses will be sent to the arm. Now this could cause the bicep to contract and tricep to relax. As a result, the arm will flip at the elbow to cause the lower arm to come closer to the chest. Now when the arm is to be lowered, the impulse will be sent again as a result of conscious thought, and the bicep will relax while the tricep contract to lower or extend the arm. You see how easy that was? CXC is kind, don't you think? Because we pulled that pretty much from something we answered before to give you the answer there. Alright, identify two drugs which act as stimulant and one drug which act as a depressant. Now we have not covered this yet, but we'll be covering this soon in one of our live. There are some drugs that are depressant, and there are some drugs, we're looking at classification of drugs. Alright, so you need to know that. Alright, so we said here, identify two drugs that act as stimulant and one drug which act as a depressant. Now that of course is going to be cocaine, which is a very hard drug, and caffeine, which you would find in a lot of your drinks, like those such as coffee. And the depressant is of course going to be like heroin, which is of course another hard drugs. Now differentiate between physical drug dependency and of course psychological drug dependency. Of course, this is usually at the back of the syllabus, a part of the syllabus that a lot of teachers might have challenges reaching this time of the year. But of course, I'll be covering it before you get to exam. So you want to join me at Mr. Wilson Live and CSET Biology TCP on a Wednesday, Friday, and of course Sunday. We have been out for a little while now, but we'll be back soon. No need to worry. So here we have physical drug dependency. The body metabolism change due to the taking of the drugs. That is when we have physical drug dependency. Now this causes withdrawal symptoms when the drug is removed, while in psychological drug dependency, the person feels they have a need to take the drugs in order to be normal or stay alive. So one is just one will change how the body function, and that is pretty much in the physical stage. However, the other one is just a concept of the mind. Alright, so here we have completed 3 questions for you. The other 3, you are going to check the description to find out where you can find those other 3 questions. Thanks much for watching, and please be reminded to like, share, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me if you enjoy this paper. Tell me which paper you think that we should be working next. Right, we want to see you, we want to hear from you. You fuel what we do here at CSET Biology TCP. Just a reminder, to the bottom right of your screen, you'll see a yellow icon that says CSEC Biology TCP. Click on that icon to subscribe, or the red icon below the video that says subscribe. You need to have a YouTube account in order to subscribe. There's also a blue icon below the video that says CSEC Biology TCP. You can click on that icon to go to the back end of the channel. And to the top right of the video you are watching, you are going to be seeing a white inverted exclamation. That will of course give you the next suggested videos. All the best. Take care until we see you again.